So you can just keep pointing at the screen. That's what I want to get a recording of. So I'm going to make it bigger. You guys see that? Can you see it well in the camera, Kim? Okay, so this one is a different recipe. This is not part of what you would do to replace it, and the numbers are not the same as what they are in some of the other forms. So pay attention when you're doing the form to what numbers are in the actual recipes that you'd be costing. Does that make sense? So for example, in here, extra virgin olive oil costs $19.50 for 3 liters. It's in one of the recipes, but that's not the price and that's not the volume. So don't just assume, well, we did 3 liters here, so that's what it would be on another sheet. Does everybody follow? Okay, so again, remember, what do you do when you're costing it out if you've got all this information already? Really, you're converting the price of the way we purchased it to the price of the unit that we used it in the recipe. That's pretty much what you need to do on this sheet, and then you need to put in the correct portions that recipe yields. And if you do all that, the spreadsheet's going to do pretty much most of the work for you. Why are we doing it like this? Because this is typically how you would actually do it in real world, right? So you wouldn't have a piece of paper and be trying to figure out the costs of everything, because it's much easier to do it in a spreadsheet. Does everybody follow so far? Okay, so if we look at the first one, what's the first thing that you need to enter when you're using the spreadsheet? Equals, right? So you got to enter equals, because that tells the spreadsheet, I'm going to do some math. What's the second thing that you're going to enter in the spreadsheet? Okay, the price. So $55.75 is the price for this first one. So this is saying the first ingredient, it's fennel bulbs. In the recipe, we use 6 of them each, the bulbs, and we buy them in a 24 count case, which means in the case there's 24 fennel bulbs. Does that make sense? And the case is $55.75. So the first thing I put equals, I put the $55.75, and then what do I want to do so that it adjusts the price to the each? Remember, forget about, don't pay any attention to those numbers, because it's programmed to multiply by those numbers already. So what do I divide by?
So you want to divide by, for this case, you want to divide by 24.
Okay, so.
But for everything else, you'd want to divide it by the recipe unit equivalent to what the AP unit is.
Very good. That's exactly right. Does everybody follow that? So in this case, because the case is 24, then to get it to the price to each, then I want to divide it by 24. That's going to automatically change this price to the price for one. And then the spreadsheet in the next column is already programmed to multiply that by how many are used in the recipe, and then divide that by the yield factor if there's some loss that's involved. Everybody good so far? Okay, so what do I do with this one then? Equals, and what do I put in? 24.50, and then what? Divided by, and then what am I looking at? Ounces and a pound or some number of pounds?
5 pounds.
5 pounds. So be careful with that, right? Because that price is for 5 pounds. It's not for a pound. So then what do I need to know in order to figure that dilemma out about the fact that there was 5 pounds in this, but I'm using it by the ounce?
Conversion factor?
It wouldn't be a conversion factor, but you're talking about a unit conversion.
Yeah.
So if I were doing it on paper, because some of these you're going to get to and you're not going to be able to do it. You can't do it in your head, right? So you could be doing it with this. You could also do it on a piece of paper, and when we're done, we'll zoom over to this. Kim, so how would I do that? We're buying it as 5 pounds, right? So you would say 5 pounds, and the conversion, what do I got to do here to make it so that I can cancel the pound? What's the relation between pounds and ounces? So where does the pound need to be, at the top or the bottom? Okay, 1 pound, right? Which means that the unit now can cancel out. And up here, this is 16 ounces. And now you can do it in your calculator, or maybe you can do it in your head. 5 times 16. If you do the math, that's 80 ounces. Everybody follow? Okay, so now going back to this, what do I put below the 2450? 80. Because the 80 represents, as Chris was pointing out, the 80 represents how many ounces are there in 5 pounds. And it's going to change the price from 5 pounds to 1 ounce. Make sense? Enter. So it's 31 cents, and there's a yield loss there, so it's not 62 cents, notice, because there's a yield factor included in there. And again, I put them in already. When we did the test, they were just written into the sheet, so they're on the form like they were with our first midterm example. How about this one? Equals, right? 1250, and does it look familiar? Divided by what? 80. So it's the same thing. It's got 5 pounds again to ounces. How about this one? Equals 39.99 divided by, okay, 135, because it's a 135 count case, which means on average there's 135 lemons, and we're using them by the each. Everybody good? How about this one? So kosher salt that we buy in a 4-pound box, but we use it by the ounce. This would change to 4. That would make that 64 if you do the math. And how about this one? Equals 7.99 divided by what? 12, because there's 12 ounces there, but that's an ounce. And then this one I put down on the bottom there, and I did this on the other forms as well, where I put any liter stuff. So I'm not expecting that you memorize how many ounces are in a liter, but there's 33.8 fluid ounces in 1 liter, and we bought extra virgin olive oil for $19.50, and there are 3 liters. So what do you do to figure out what number to put underneath that? Exactly, so 33.8 times 3, which is a little over 100. It is 101.4. So I would put that 101.4 here, which is going to change that price from 3 liters to a fluid ounce. And then that would do the math for me to pull it over. Make sense? What's the last thing I need to do to figure out what the question is, which is how much does 1 portion cost?
Input portion recipe.
And what do I put for this one?
2.5 ounces.
You put in 10.
So there's 10 portions.
Oh, the yield of it.
That's telling us what the portion size is, but what we really want to know is how many portions total does this recipe make, so we can divide the price to get us the cost for 1 portion. Does everybody follow that? So in this case, I'd put 10. That would tell me it costs $1.81. So again, for that, those questions on the exam, that's all I asked you to figure out. How much does it cost? So this spreadsheet is set up so that we could use it to figure out other things too. So if we were trying to figure out what would we sell it for if we had a specific food cost percent, that's where you'd use that bottom part of the spreadsheet. So if I just use that general number that we've said a bunch of times of 30% food cost, then that would tell me that this says, oh, you should sell that for $6.04. Make sense? Of course, are you going to put some charred fennel bulbs on a menu for $6.04? This is actually probably something that's a sub-component of another recipe, like an entree comes with charred fennel or something like that. But that's a number that we probably wouldn't usually use. So then you'd put, if we were trying to figure out how much we're actually going to sell it for, we could put in whatever price we actually want to sell it for. Whoops, not $700. And it would tell us what the actual food cost percent. But that's as far as you had to go. So everybody follow? So it's just, can we use a spreadsheet to figure out the food cost of a single portion of something that if we have all the data that we needed to figure that out? Good? Okay, so there is a drink like there was on the midterm. Notice a couple of them are in liters. Notice there's info down there about what those equate to in fluid ounces. And there is a recipe for a dressing. Make that bigger. Like there was on our midterm. It's just a different dressing. And again, it's got all the info in there about how much is in the recipe, what the costs are, what yield factors there were of any of the ingredients, and that there's a recipe for a bread in here as well. So you could do these three, and if you do it in Excel, you could send it to me. If you do it in Google, on Google Sheets, you can share it with my email address, which is on Canvas, on the syllabus page there, if you're not familiar with it already. And then I'll review those, and I'll go in to the midterm and edit your scores from the food costing questions that were the same as this for anybody who wants to do that. Got it?
Okay, we're finding this link on the email or on Canvas?
I'll send you a link. It's on Canvas as an Excel file right now. I'll send you a link to it's in the Google folder that I sent before, but I'll send a link again so it's front and center for you. Yep. You can stop.